Hello, everyone. This is Julie Teal. It's good to be with you here today, and welcome to the Leadership and Retention Lab. As I mentioned, my name is Julie Teal. My firm is Teal Talent Strategy. And what we do at my organization is we help professional services firms keep their best people and prepare their workforce for what's next. So it's great to have you with me today. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my chat. So if you see me looking around here, I'm kind of operating the system here to make this all work today. It is a beautiful day in early November in Minnesota. And so I'm not sure where you're coming from, where you're at. I can see your comments. So if you put anything in the chat, I'll be able to see it. But we are really spoiled today, just a beautiful fall day. And I'm a little overdue on getting the leaves raked up. So that's on the to-do list for the next week or so to get that done before the snow hits. Although I have heard snow's coming this Friday or Saturday. So anyway, it's great to have you here today. The topic today that we're going to be talking about is retention through purpose, why meaning matters. And I always like to reference, this is the sixth show in a series that reviews the key components of the here, let me switch over here and I'll show it to you. The retention and culture model that, based on both research and experience, I have put together. I really think if you're taking in consideration these 6 factors, which spell out handily enough the word growth, we have started at the beginning with great beginnings. We've worked our way through the last 5. And today we're on the 6th topic, which is the H, which is higher purpose, and how higher purpose really makes a difference in culture and retaining your best people. Higher purpose, again, we're going to get into some of the details around it, but it's connecting daily work to something meaningful. So, and if you're doing that, I've got research, certainly if there's meaning in your work, there's pride associated with that. It creates a sense of belonging, a sense of commitment, which naturally leads to employee retention. Studies, again, I don't like to go too crazy on the science behind some of this or the research, but there is a McKinsey study did state that employees who find purpose are 4 times more likely to be engaged in the workplace. So you think about engagement surveys, higher engagement would show in those types of assessment tools. In addition, they're about 2 times more likely to stay. So there, again, this is the last one in the model, but there's not certainly an importance in any of these. This is just as important as any of the other 5 factors. So I think what we'll do today, I always like to give you a nice sense of what we're going to talk about, but we're going to cover 3 aspects in the next 30 minutes of higher purpose and meaning when it comes to creating a great workplace. And we're going to talk a little bit about values, the importance of creating values, and really the common language that comes from values. We're going to talk about telling customer stories and impact stories within your organization and what a difference that can make. And then lastly, we're going to talk about how community involvement and community commitments can make also a really big difference in the feel of the organization that naturally leads to employee retention. So those are the 3 things we're going to talk about today. Let me click back over to the comments. So I'm got that in my view and easy to see. And I'm going to go ahead and jump into talking about values. So every company has a series of values that they've identified. Sometimes there's 3, sometimes there's 5, sometimes there's 6, 7. And the real key thing, I don't know that it matters so much what those factors are, but what in my mind matters most is that you have them, they exist, they're defined, and that they're real in the organization. If they are just words on a wall, on a page, they really don't have the intended impact. And every company's got a little different way of going about identifying values. That's something certainly I've done with organizations in the past. But the goal I find with defining values for an organization is that it really needs to be the common thread that connects everyone there, the things that everyone that works there tends to personify and aspire to. Because when you're identifying values for an organization, not only should they somewhat reflect what exists today, so they have to be real today when you look around the organization, but they also have to be a bit aspirational. So they're like who you are and a little bit better, a little bit better to get to the next level, right? They need to be something that creates a little bit of a push and urgency around employee behavior and employee engagement. So, just to give you a few examples, like I've worked in organizations where clearly innovation was one of the key components. And the people that were attracted to that organization and that stayed there for the long haul were all people that were kind of motivated by new ideas, thinking differently, putting new ideas on the table, investing in new technologies, exploring new technologies. So all of those things are ways, are kind of the components of talking about innovation in the workplace. And they had some different language around it, but I just bring that up because innovation, when we did a word cloud on engagement surveys for how people described the organization, creativity, innovation, new ideas, all of those things just naturally came up. And so you could see that core concept, that value really was personified in the organization. And people, like when you ask them about the organization, they would say something to do with innovation. So that is one way you can almost double check to see where your organization is in. How would you describe the organization? What would people say if you ask them? And then in addition to that, I'm a big believer in organizations need to differentiate themselves also by their values and how they describe themselves. And another example of a place that was super fun to work at was a smaller company that really was what I would call a little bit rebellious. So they really didn't want to follow standard corporate processes and procedures. So, and they went as far as having no titles. So you were identified by your work responsibilities. There were technically no titles. There really was no hierarchy. People didn't have, there was reporting relationships, but it wasn't like there were levels in the organization necessarily. And there were no offices. So everyone was in a cube, including the CEO. So it was a little different organization, as that's a little bit of a flavor of how it worked. But as you might imagine, that type of culture and values, valuing, they were very much into everyone's the same, we're all equal. And as a result, that's why they were kind of anti-title and kind of the trappings of hierarchy, which are things like offices. So, but when they did that, it really did a good job of either, like when we were interviewing people, we would describe these things and had a set of values that helped kind of distill down those ideas into a list. We could share that with people we were interviewing, and it either attracted them or it repelled them. And that's one of the beautiful things about values. It helps, kind of gives a signal for employees about what to expect before they arrive and what to expect once they're within the organization. So I think it is okay. In fact, I encourage organizations to differentiate. You shouldn't have the same values as everyone else, because that's a little bit of where I think values go wrong. If you were to take 5 companies and list their values, could you identify the company if you didn't know if you didn't know who those values actually directly connected to? So it is an important thing to differentiate. So I bring that up, and so what I'm curious about. So this is my personal opinion, and maybe this is controversial, but I tend to believe when you're writing values for an organization, integrity is often a value that people will want to add to the list. And I've worked with organizations that actually had that on the list, and those that didn't have it on the list. And in the case of those that didn't, their view was, well, integrity is assumed. Like, we shouldn't have to say we believe in integrity. It's like, that is just, that's the baseline. We don't even need to say it because it exists. And then they really leaned into what made them different. And I do like that. So I do like the approach of saying, okay, we're assuming that you have high in ethics and integrity. We don't feel like we need to call that out on our list. But that is a question I have for you. So in the chat, if you have, I'd love to hear your opinion on whether integrity and ethics and those types of things need to be listed in the values, or whether it's okay just to, feel free to disagree with me, and whether it's okay to have that be something that is just assumed and as a standard. So really no right or wrong, but curious to hear what you think about that as well. So let me move. Oh, and then there's one other example I almost forgot to share that I just think is so fun. So an organization recently, I've been doing a little bit of traveling and meeting a lot of people at conferences and things like that. And I met a really outstanding leader a couple of weeks ago. And what she said they do, their values are, they do not want any clients that treat their team badly. Like they're very explicit about that. And what they've done to bring that value or that principle to life is at the end of the year, they always have a end of the year kind of party, like a holiday party that they get together and they review the year. And as part of that, they do have an open discussion with the team. Now it's not a really big team, but it's enough that you get all in one room. And they actually talk about, are there any clients that we want to vote off the island? So they kind of look at it like a survivor discussion. And they, for many years, would identify one or two clients that the team just said, I don't think this client's worth it. And they'd have a really good open discussion about why. And then the leader, again, to her credit, would take the action to kind of create a transition plan to transition out of that work. I mean, talk about values and action. I just love that. So again, I wanted to be sure to share that. And because I just think that is an amazing example of bringing your values to life and putting some teeth behind what you believe in and how you want your people to be treated. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. Now let's move on to the next topic. The next topic is telling stories. One of the ways you can also bring your values to life is by telling stories that highlight client impact. So within your organization, now storytelling is important regardless, I think, for leaders and organizations to connect with people. But very specifically, when you're talking about impact, those types of stories around, like if you're saving money if you're an accounting firm and you're saving money in taxes, talk about that. Talk about some of the successes you've had in saving your clients money. Talk about the peace of mind that came from a financial report that you created, or how the financial support you provided helped that owner sell their business at a nice profit. Those are the types of things. Again, I know you have to be somewhat generic. You can't share confidential client information, but finding a way to share a story about impact is really, really meaningful. And if it's not part of the regular cadence of your organization, it's something to really think about. So, other examples of places that I've worked or things that I've seen. I worked for a company that manufactured pizza and sold pizza. Of course, first of all, pizza is really fun. Like as a thing to be creating as an organization, that's super fun to be creating. But the client stories were all around, helping busy moms and busy families have a dinner to connect. It's not always possible for busy families to have a homemade meal, and by providing pizza, that could be a way for families to still connect. And I think we all have examples in our personal life of everybody connecting over a good pizza. So I just think that's a fun one. So telling stories, and then that same company provided a lot of pizza for schools. And who doesn't love pizza day when you're in school? So there was a lot of discussion about making food accessible and affordable to children as they're fueling up for their day. So there are ways to take really anything you do and create impact stories and help bring that to life within your organization. And if you have trouble doing that at a large level, because sometimes I know people that are going to see this are part of all different size organizations. Sometimes you're a piece of the big puzzle and it's hard to know exactly where you fit. As a leader, you can still find ways to tell stories and to bring how your team's work helped another department advance. So, as much as it's nice to tell company wide stories, if you're able to do that, do that. But even at a department or team level, spending the time and even bringing in leaders from other departments to say, hey, we delivered that for you. Will you talk about what difference that work made in your work? Lots of times that also creates a sense of meaning that is bigger than just the team. So people know that the effort they're putting in every day makes a meaningful difference, either on a client or on other teams within the organization. And I just want to do a quick shout out to Sarah. Hi, Sarah. Thanks for the comment. That idea about I appreciate the comment about that voting people off the island, the Survivor company. They really did a great job of walking the talk. I think that is a fun example I didn't want to miss. So thanks for the shout out on that as well. All right. And I would say when it comes to stories, telling stories is probably the fastest thing you can do. So if I were to say if there's one action to take coming out of this today, is to think about stories you can tell about impact. There's really very little cost to that. It takes, if you're not sure, it takes very little time really to do a few outreaches to find impact stories that you can bring back to the team. And I think it's a very quick way to make a big impact on the meaning for the team. So again, values are sometimes a heavier lift that we just talked about, but when you're talking about stories, you can begin those at any time. So I want to encourage you to walk out of here today and thinking about what stories can I tell. So that is my challenge to you. So the third and final piece is building community connections and community impact. So, what that means to me and what I've seen is when an organization or a team picks a cause or causes that they believe are important, and those can be on a national level, those can be on a local level, and then take action to get involved. So, pick a cause and support it. So, and make time as a team or an organization for volunteering, because that can also create a lot of goodwill within an organization to know that your company cares enough, your manager, your organization cares enough that you as a team or a group spend time supporting something that's in your community. Like one of my favorites is to support food banks. And there are a lot of local food banks that invite teams to come and help pack items for the day or those sorts of things. So you can spend a good half day as a team coming together in your community in person, doing an activity together, kind of being able to connect with your team on a different level, and then walk away knowing that the work you did actually helped feed people or whatever that cause is that your organization or that you've suggested or decided to get involved with. So I think one of the premium ways to do this is to actually have days where employees are given a day a year that they can go volunteer at a cause of their choice, and then you collect the stories around that experience so that everyone can understand the difference that 8-hour commitment made on the community or on others. I think that is a great way to do it. And then finally, one of the things for leaders that I've really appreciated is when an organization encourages their leaders or really anyone to get involved in boards. Nonprofit board experience is a phenomenal way to develop leaders. And having your company support that and having the ability as an individual leader to pick the cause that you want to get deeper into and involved from a board standpoint, that is a phenomenal way to show commitment to not only the individual, but to the community. And those types of things, again, when you're talking about retention, there's not typically one thing or one action you're going to take that is going to make a meaningful difference on whether people decide to stay at your company or leave. The thing that you're looking for is to create all these multiple stickiness on, on any one employee. So a little bit of volunteerism, making sure their pay's in line. We talked about that previously. Having a good onboarding experience, building relationships with the team. You look at that 6-factor growth model, all those pieces, if you can get a little bit of stickiness on all of these, that adds up into a system that actually retains people. So I want you to keep that in mind. So there's not necessarily one item that is going to like do volunteerism and you're good. I mean, I'm not saying that at all. It's that through the process of creating opportunity and engaging with your teams and creating this culture where great people want to stay, you're going to, by putting all those pieces in place, you end up with the result that you're seeking. So one of the things I'd love for you to do, if there's a specific volunteer activity that you've done with your team that you think is particularly fun, I'd love for you to share that in the chat as well. I'd love to hear what you have found to be interesting and motivating as you've worked within organizations and brought this community engagement piece to life. And now, while you're doing that, I kind of tried to distill each of these. I'm trying to distill each of these 6 factors into one big question that you could ask to get a feel for your organization and whether the impact is there that you're intending. And here's the connection, that the big question that I've got on my mind that I want to share with you. And it's, if I asked employees how their work makes a difference, whether it's in the community, on the client, within their team, would they have a clear and inspiring answer to that question? So let me say it one more time. If I asked your employees how their work makes a difference, would they have a clear and inspiring answer to that question? So that's something I want you to think about. That is kind of the litmus test in my mind as to where your organization stands on this topic of higher purpose. Do people really feel like there's meaning? And those questions, I think, can help reveal really where you stand. So I want to leave that with you today as a piece of just something to reflect on. And also, I just want to, again, thank you, Sarah. I see you jumped in with a comment. So Sarah's comment is, I love how teams can build stronger connections with each other while supporting the community. Yes, from a team building standpoint, volunteering is gold. If volunteering is challenging, even food drives can be helpful. So one of her clients at this time is hosting a special food drive for the community. Oh, in the lead up to Thanksgiving. That's fantastic. And again, it's easy even within the company, like you're saying, if people are bringing food, dropping off food, it's just a way to feel connected. And again, share, I guess it's a pass it forward type of thing, sharing the goodness, sharing your gratitude, sharing your success really when you're volunteering and doing a food drive. That's a fantastic example, Sarah. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. So we've talked about 3 different things. So I want to recap that really quickly. We've talked about defining values and how that really can bring to life what an organization stands for and helps people feel a sense of connection. We've talked about the importance of telling stories, whether that's about client impact, whether it's about how one team has helped another team. Telling stories is incredibly important. So we talked about that. And in my mind, probably the easiest place to start. And then as we head into the holidays, it's also good to be thinking, the third thing we talked about is community connection and how engaging with the community can be a fantastic way for employees to feel part of the organization and a little deeper, a little more committed to the organization as well. And my view, again, when you're volunteering in the community, tell stories about that too. Don't be shy, don't be private about it. It's that, again, you can't assume because one team's doing things, other teams know. So really highlighting success, highlighting engagement is incredibly important to creating an organization where everyone feels like they belong and that they're a part of the organization. And I also asked that question, if I asked your employees how their work makes a difference, would they have a clear and inspiring answer? That's kind of a yes or no. Either they do or they don't. So as we come to a close here, if you are curious at all, so let me bring this up again. I really think that this model that we've talked about, today was on higher purpose, but over the last several weeks, we've talked about all 6 of these factors. So if you're curious about where your organization stands relative to these 6, one of the things I've recently created is a 10-minute, very short questionnaire that you can complete that covers like all the different facets of these 6 factors to see where does your organization stand as far as where are you set up well to retain staff and where are you a little weak, where might it be worth it to take a little deeper look. So if you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, either in the DMs or if you want to add a comment onto this video, the word retention, I will reach out to you and get you a link to that. It's called the Retention Pulse Check because it just doesn't take very long to do. And it's got a lot of good information. So if you take that Retention Pulse Check, takes a very short period of time. And then all you would need to do is schedule time with me and I'll walk you through your results, and you'll walk away not only with a customized report of where your organization stands when on these 6 factors, but you'll also walk away. I've got a whole ebook on the topic of this growth model for retention. So love to share that with you. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd be really happy to get that to you and walk you through all of that. And then the other thing I wanted to say is that this is, so again, everyone says start a show, start a podcast. I have, right? So I have jumped in the deep end of the pool when it comes to using this technology, doing LinkedIn Lives that connects to my YouTube channel and all those things. And I've enjoyed it. I've kind of figured out how to do this. Fortunately, it does take a little bit of practice, like most things. And what I'm going to start doing now going forward, which has always been my intention, is I'm going to start inviting different leaders from organizations that are doing great things around leadership and retention onto this show to share a little bit about their stories. So one of the highlights of my experience as an entrepreneur has been meeting leaders who are doing great things. And again, as I've gone along, I've been calling this a podcast. It's not really a podcast. It's a video podcast, I guess. But I have been inviting people along. So the exciting thing for me is that going forward, the majority of these shows are going to be interviews, which will be really fun for me to learn more and hopefully provide a lot of value for you too. I think that's going to be a lot of fun to do this pivot and start bringing other people into the conversation going forward. And what I'm doing next time is I'm bringing on actually 2 just incredibly smart friends and colleagues of mine, Bill Welter and Jim Samuelson. We're actually starting a second business called the Prepared Mind Project because we have really a really nice model that we're getting ready to launch and share around helping leaders learn the skills and learn how to anticipate the future. So you think about the amount of change that we've had as a society, even over the last year. Oh, wow. I mean, you think about the rise of AI, economic challenges. There have been political, no matter what your opinion is, there's been a lot of political change going on as well. I mean, and it is really hard to adapt to that change. And the business that myself, Bill Welter, and Jim Samuelson have put together called the Prepared Mind Project is really we're stepping into that world and starting to say, we don't want people to be intimidated, stressed, afraid of the future. I think given the speed of change, it's easy to go there. And we know that more middle management roles need to be more strategic in their thinking in order to anticipate change, adapt to change, and improve their skill set as the world keeps changing so quickly. So we've got something that we'll be launching called the 8 Skills of a Prepared Mind, and some other fun tools like the sense response cycle. And again, I'm kind of geeking out on this. I love leadership development. And this is really a way for 3 of us that have put our heads together to come up with some really cool ideas. Well, this next one, so in 2 weeks, Bill, Jim, and I are going to have a conversation on this show about the Prepared Mind Project and give a little preview into the work that we've been doing and preparing for the future. So I certainly hope you'll join us. It's going to be a fun conversation. Bill, Jim, and I always have a good time when we're talking. So I'm going to have to try and be in interviewer mode, although I have stuff to share too on that topic. But I think that'll be a fun way to kind of launch this new phase of the Leadership and Retention Lab to start focusing on bringing multiple voices to the table to talk about these very important topics. So thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate all of you watching, listening, either now or on the recording. And I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.